Let's go to Washington because 24 hours after Donald Trump picked the vaccine skeptic Robert F. Kennedy Jr. to be the next US health secretary, a backlash is beginning. Absolutely the wrong guy. That's coming from the head of America's Public Health Association, who has said he will personally oppose the nomination, claiming Mr. Kennedy Jr.'s spreading of conspiracy theories already causing great damage to the nation's health. Mr. Trump's aides stand by him, saying the US needs to embrace out-of-the-box thinking. Well, he's just one of a number of candidates for the Trump government that is ruffling feathers right now. Loyalty is key, it seems. Other names picking up headlines: the chisel-jawed anti-woke Army vet and Fox News host Peter Hegseth for Defense Secretary, chosen over four-star generals, career politicians. And there's the firebrand Congressman Matt Gaetz for Attorney General, reportedly provoking gasps as the news filtered through a senior Republican meeting. He's faced an ethics investigation for sex trafficking, which he denied. And Tulsi Gabbard, too, National Intelligence Chief, used to be a Democrat supporter of Bernie Sanders, turned against Hillary Clinton, went instead for Trump a few years ago. Seen as a sympathizer of Vladimir Putin, to her critics, some have called her Russia Today's favourite politician. Well, let's cross to DC. Let's get the view from the Republican strategist Dan Hazelwood. Great to talk to you, Dan, this evening. A lot to pick through. Shall we start with, well, your take on the picks this week and the feathers that they're ruffling?
Well, I would caution everybody to remember that the one thing you should not do is overreact. This is the lesson we've had for the Trump era. People should start to underreact. Let the processes unfold. If you look at, first, let's look at the broad spectrum. I know we're going to talk about some specific nominees for offices, but if you look at the broad spectrum, many of these are typical appointments in a Republican administration. A Republican Western governor, or from North Dakota for Department of Interior, Senator Marco Rubio for Secretary of State, the pick for National Security Advisor, the pick for Central Intelligence Agency. These are all pretty normal picks by any standard new administration in Washington. Obviously, we're focusing on some of the more controversial in the press, but let's see the process unfold. We've had a lot of people talk about the Republicans and how they're going to approve stuff. This all has to get, almost every one of these jobs have to be approved by the Republican U.S. Senate. National Security Advisor does not. But Matt Gaetz is already looking at some serious challenges going forward of getting approved by the Republican U.S. Senate. So we're going to have the traditional systems of Washington being Washington, D.C.
I was listening to one of your old colleagues, a Republican strategist, Mike Murphy, who has since made clear that he's an anti-Trump strategist now. But he said this, he said he believes what Donald Trump has been doing is, quote, flooding the zone. The idea that you put in lots of candidates who perhaps are loyalty first, qualifications second, was his line. And if you try to get them through Congress, the idea is the most perhaps audacious, outrageous, go by the wayside, but you still get in a number of Trump loyalists by flooding the zone. What do you make of that?
It's certainly possible. Mike Murphy's a friend, and I love the idea that he's saying that Donald Trump is being clever and working the system. That's not Mike's usual commentary on President-elect Trump. But if you look at what Trump announced first and what his priorities are, you can see border and immigration policies are going to be where he really targets to expend his political capital to change fundamentally the direction of policies in the United States. So that's where I would look for him to have the biggest fight. And then somebody else made the comment, if you look at the appointments of, say, Tulsi Gabbard or of RFK Jr., these are very much of sort of the American version of the European multi-parliamentary coalitions trying to offer seats to their coalition partners. He perceives, as these people try to be helpful for him, there's a lot of desire for upending the bureaucracies in Washington, both from Donald Trump, from the Republican Party in general, and also to a degree for the American people. So this is sort of the change he promised, maybe not in the specific line items, but this is what people should be expecting. But we've got a long way to go to the process. None of these people take office, if they're confirmed, until January 20th. We got a long way to go. So everybody should just sort of sit back and really evaluate what's coming.
Let me get your take on Matt Gaetz, because you briefly mentioned him. So this is somebody who was subject of an investigation over allegations of sexual misconduct, bribery, illicit drug use. He denies all the allegations. There is a situation now where, according to a number of reports, including the New York Times, there were gasps, visceral moment when senior Republicans heard the news that he was going to be essentially the wisest law maker of the land as Attorney General. Did you gasp?
I was taken aback. The bingo card of who's going to get stuff. I didn't even imagine Matt Gaetz of being Attorney General. Just as a technical point, that's not the lawmaker. It's traditionally referred to as the senior law enforcement officer. Yeah, it's a completely out of the box, unexpected pick, and it's already running into the traditional Washington system, where even though the Republicans are going to have the majority come January in the U.S. Senate, a number of Republican senators have started to ask questions, want more information, and this is the usual process. And so, for all that the world has changed, certain things in our constitutional system appears to, in particularly the Matt Gaetz respect, appear to be going down the same old pathway of he may just be too controversial to get confirmed.
Yeah, you're quite right. So he's nominated to be the most senior law officer in the US. He's worked as a lawyer, I think, for less than 2 years. He could, as you say, now be the highest legal mind in the land. He also met with the January the 6th convicts in prison. So I think just give you a sense of where he's coming from. For you, interesting, you think, if he doesn't get through, I just wonder whether the other analysis of Donald Trump's thinking here, and very hard to predict the unpredictable, is that he's testing. This is one for his base that's very popular. And if Republicans in the Senate don't put him through, he can hold his hands up and say, I tried. It's not me, it's them.
Again, what I would actually say is if Trump is actually thinking that and playing that game of chess, that would be a sign that he has a specific plan for his administration. People may not like it, but that it's a much more thought through process of what he's going to try and achieve. And, it's very clear he does want a Justice Department that is not a threat to him personally, because he did not have a good relationship in his mind with the Justice Department when he was in office before, or particularly when the Democrats were in charge. But where you see him putting in people with expert knowledge, still controversial on immigration matters, that does seem to be where the weight is going. And the next round of what we'll probably be seeing is his economic team, which we haven't seen that build out yet. So that's going to be a whole nother round of very interesting choices, possibly next week.
Can I ask your thoughts on Elon Musk and Donald Trump? There seems to be they're enamored right now. We hear of, all of the jobs that Elon Musk is doing, this advisory board, the DOGE unit, sorting out the Department of Government Efficiency, also in on these calls with Javier Milei, in a conversation with him, on a call with Zelensky, reportedly on a call as well with the Iranian ambassador to the UN. I heard one analyst talk about we're seeing two Tomcats in the same pillowcase here. At some point, one is going to win out. They can't both stay together that long. Do you share that view, or do you think this could last out?
Well, I think that's true in the sense of, but we've got a very clear constitutional system. Trump will win out. I mean, he is going to be the president of the United States, and he's going to decide what will happen. And presumably, Elon Musk has a lot of interests besides the government right now. And while that's taking up a lot of his time, and you saw Trump, the rally I think you're showing right now, or maybe it was a different one, he was actually tweaking how much Elon Musk is hanging around. So, Trump's going to be playing this, and I think they both know where they end up. And there's also clear areas where Musk is going to diverge from Donald Trump. Musk is a more radical First Amendment supporter than anybody that we've seen in Washington at this level. He is, now that's not the usual Trump model. That's the Musk model. And then you're going to see Musk actually is also a massive proponent of solar power and electrical cars. Obviously, these are not, those two topics are ones that were punchlines for Trump on the campaign trail. So there's absolutely going to be a divergence. You can count on it. The question is if they both wander off in the areas that they are more concerned with, or how long do they work together? That's going to be one of the interesting things that unfold.
Dan, we have about 30 seconds, but I'm really keen to hear your thoughts briefly, just at the moment where the Democrats have to look at themselves deeply right now. And one of the issues that a number of Democrats came up with as a possible where they really went wrong is their whole podcast strategy, kind of underplaying it, not realizing the strength of the likes of, some call them the new mainstream media, the likes of Joe Rogan, getting 50 million plus viewers, and how Donald Trump tapped into that, the young male strategy. Do you think, in brief, Kamala Harris should have actually absolutely done that interview with Joe Rogan?
She should have done it because it would have been a sign of strength, and it would have shown if she was agile enough to be in a long format communication. The larger issue, the Democrats didn't lose because of technology. I've been around in this business a long time. Ronald Reagan didn't win on technology. Obama didn't win on technology. That's always the excuse. This was fundamentally about message. When you ask the American people who was more extreme, she came off as more extreme than Donald Trump. And so people said, well, if they're both extreme, I'm going to take the person who's going to care about what I care about, which is the economy and immigration. So it's always the message that matters. And I would say that's where the change of course correction has to come.
Dan, a pleasure to talk to you. Dan Hazelwood, a Republican Party strategist in Washington, D.C. Stay with us here on France 24. We're going to be back in just a moment.